Welcome back. You're watching Inside Politics. It's 8 minutes past the top of the hour. From wherever you're tuning in from, thank you for staying with us. We continue dissecting the top political developments that have played out in the course of the week. And this might not be too political, but the government has in some quarters been called out due to its response when it comes to the flood situation in the country. Needless to say, President William Ruto held a couple of cabinet meetings to try and alleviate the situation in terms of those who were affected. We had the schools will not be opened indefinitely. We equally had that those in low-lying areas will be assisted to move to high-lying areas as well. But these comments have been criticized by Azimio leader Raila Odinga, who just this week, I think it was on Friday, criticized the government's response. And equally thereafter, yesterday, Kenya Kwanza leaders had a response as well. Listen in.
Sasa wakati hiyo walikuwa wanapenya porojo kila mahali yatio Azimio inataka kuharibu uchumi wetu. Azimio ndio imekalia sisi hatuwezi kuendelesha mambo. Tukasema basi tusimame tukae kando. Sasa ni mwaka moja tangu wakati ile. Hali imekuwa mzuri. Hali imebadilika.
Odinga claiming the government was not in touch with reality.
So walishindwa na hata wakikaa miaka 10 hawameshindwa. Zakayo hajui njia.
Tungemuuliza mzee rafiki yetu Baba Raila Odinga, William Ruto anaelewa mambo ya uchumi, ndio amedhibiti uchumi. Mambo ya siasa ya Kenya anaelewa, ndio alikushinda kwa uchaguzi, hata ukisaidiwa na wale walikuwa na serikali na system zote.
We want to tell Raila Odinga, please be a decent gentleman. It cannot be that while we are busy trying to sort the mess that you and Uhuru Kenyatta created in this country, that you are leading from the front again, creating disturbance in our country.
Okay, interesting. It seems politics is all to do with you scratch my back, I scratch yours, yeah? So let's start with you, madam, because we've heard from Raila, who has been conspicuously silent with issues that have been bedeviling the country. But recently he's decided to raise his voice, speak out in terms of the government's response. And what we got from Kenya Kwanza leaders sort of gives you a picture that perhaps Baba's position at AUC is anchored on how he behaves locally.
Yes.
Talk to us about it.
Very well. I must first of all express my disappointment with the political space and the political turnaround of things in the Republic of Kenya. When we are going through such a tough time, when we are losing lives every day, basically Kenya is groaning, and Kenya is going through a period that we have never experienced for the longest time possible. A humanitarian thing that requires a very quick humanitarian focus. But unfortunately, we are politicizing the France. We are politicizing what is currently happening in the country. Kenyans, we are losing it. And that's why I have to keep beating the drums of bringing to an end politics and general elections in the country. Because if it were not for the coming 2027 elections, we couldn't be seeing what we are seeing. People hate each other because of these divisive, tribalistic elections. It's competitive politics. And even now what we are seeing in the France, what we have just seen on our screen, that's nothing else but competitive politics and playing games with a very, very serious humanitarian crisis in the country. I wonder what bodies like the UN, the European Union are saying about Kenya when they see such things happening on our screen. And me coming from that perspective of diplomatic missions and all that, I asked myself, are we able to manage a country without politicians and without politics? Because right now, 100%, every Kenyan, every leader from the opposition to the government must be focused on how Wanjiko can be settled down, on how people who are going through challenging times because of France can be settled down, can have food on the table, can have shelter. We should be focusing 100% on infrastructure development in schools. Okay. Are we forgetting that our children are at home when we come on our screen and start throwing words on politics? So there is what we are lacking in this country. Integrity, and don't want to repeat. Number 2, prioritization. Right now, it's not about politics, as I have said earlier. It's about thinking, how are we bringing back order in schools? How are we going to rebuild the infrastructure development in schools so that our children can go back to school? But when we talk about who is stronger now in this politically and who is able to throw more words politically, Wanjiko is asking ourselves, did we mess up by doing what we did by exercising our rights to elect leaders? Are we going wrong? So the bottom line is, can we offer leadership? Leaders from opposition, whether it is from the Raila group or from the government of Kenya, can we give leadership to the country, and especially at a time like now when we have been faced by such a magnitude of a humanitarian gap in this country? Let us show the international agencies that in such a crisis we are together. But what our politicians are showing the UN and other agencies is that we are still continuing with our divisions, even in such a crisis. And politicizing, I mean, taking advantage of the France to garner political mileage. It's just bad.
So you call out the opposition as well for
Come on,
taking
from
advantage.
Raila's team to the government's team, just keep quiet and focus on how we are going to resettle people, focus on how we are going to make sure that Kenyans breathe life. We are waiting very quickly to see our children get back to school. This is the debate. Remember, our doctors are in the streets. We are not hearing this. Jesse, allow me to say that Kenya bila uchaguzi is a reality, and we are bringing it on. We are bringing it up very soon. We must do away with elections. We must do away with politics in the Republic of Kenya.
That is definitely, time will tell.
Time will tell.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure the politicians wouldn't be smiling upon that particular message. But Brian, as you come in, what do you make of Raila's criticism? Is it warranted? Do you believe the government should have been a little bit proactive when it comes to the disaster management? I know you said disasters you can't anticipate, but with all things considered, the weatherman gave us the signs, and it's here with us.
Thank you very much. As you alluded, I think emergencies and disaster, in their nature, they are not easy to manage and predict. But there are some steps that can be done. Yes. Number one is even developed world. It's not just limited to Kenya. We've seen flood, tsunami in other parts of the world, and the devastation and the destruction they've caused. Number one, there's something called, for example, risk assessment. And I think the government has mapped out some areas. So Interior Cabinet Secretary mapping out where there are public and private dams, their level, and the mitigation factors, telling people to move to lowlands, to highlands. Those are some of the things that can be done to mitigate these things. I agree we need more preparation, more set out protocols that in case of this emergency, these are the protocols to follow. But emergencies are emergencies, and the government need to do more on that juncture.
And before I let you go, is Raila's candidature pegged on how he behaves locally? Because if you translate what Kenya Kwanza leaders are saying, is ukiendelea hivi, President Ruto is busy campaigning for you out there, but he can't be campaigning for you if you're decampaigning him within the country.
No, I think the president said his support for Raila is unconditional. But this is politics also. Politician will speak, but the president can speak for himself.
Yes.
I've seen Raila Odinga also is capable of campaigning for himself. He has friends all over the continent. But the president condition was, there was no condition for the president to campaign
So there was
for
no
Raila Odinga.
condition.
Yes.
Thanks for clarifying that. And as Prof, you come in, I just want to digress a little bit, because we equally have to talk about what played out in terms of the military changes, the change of guard that happened within the military. And I know this is not political at all, but the angle I'd like us to take a look at is the Tonje rules and how they've been factored in terms of President William Ruto appointing the next CDF in General Kahariri. Let's listen in to what the Defense Committee members in the National Assembly had to say as my colleague Emmanuel To interrogated them. Listen in.
And I'm joined by some of the top-ranking officials in the Committee of the National Defense and Foreign Relations.
The issue of Tonje rules, they have lived with us, they have served us well. But I think it's time they need to be looked into. We need to review it. Because, you know, when you say Navy, Army was there, and then followed by Air Force or Navy, and then it goes the same way. I think it is not the right thing from now on, because the strength of the services are not the same. Army has more generals than Air Force and than Navy. So if we still continue with the Tonje rules continuously, we will disadvantage an entire service which has more numbers than others. It is my humble view and my advice actually to the Commander-in-Chief that needs to be reviewed, and that please consider that the strength of each service, so that, because I mean, we have very senior lieutenant generals, very senior generals in the Army. Of course, in the Air Force they are present, also in the Navy they are present, but in the Army they are more, and they could have they could be more senior. But these disadvantages now that Tonje rule says ABCD, but it's time. Even in where I stand, as a former officer in the military, a member of the Defense Committee, I think the Tonje rule on the matter of which service to be appointed needs to be looked into. Sometimes you can say, do army, and then you put another service, and then you go to and then army again, another service. That's the only way now you can look at the strength of each service.
Okay. General Tonje also gave some recommendations about the age factor. Are you also looking into that to change that?
No. The good thing on that aspect is he says 4 years or 62 years of age, whichever comes first. That's quite in order. Well, that also helps to give more officers to perform the duties.
You know, the Tonje rules was a good thing for KDF because they wanted to allow continuity and also people to give chance to those who are below in rank, so that one does not stay long. Because in the previous time, before Tonje rules, we had a CDF who stayed maybe for 10 years, 7 years, 8 years. But Tonje said 4 years or 62 years in terms of age, whichever comes first. This would allow many generals to occupy the highest office in the land in terms of people coming to become CDF. And I think it's just a guide, but also it's good for the military, because everybody will aspire in their lifetime to reach the top. Military is what you call a super bureaucracy, where people come into service maybe in a particular year. They get promoted through ranks. At any one time, there could be competitors for a particular appointment, but there will always be a front runner.
There you have it. Two former servicemen, one Mandera North MP, Major Retired Bashir Abdullahi, who is also the Vice Chair of the National Assembly Defense Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committee, and Colonel Retired Dido Raso, who is the MP of Saku, all talking about the applicability of the Tonje rules. Of course, President William Ruto upheld it, but there have been assertions that, you know, Tonje rules are not necessarily binding, so we don't have to go through with it. Take a look at the pros and cons. What benefits does it bring to us? Do the pros outweigh the cons? Talk to us about this from your point of view.
Yeah, first of all, I can't talk about this thing without expressing my feeling towards General Gola's death. Because I can actually say that with certainty, that 20 rules contributed significantly to what us, Linda Jamiwi, believe that was an assassination. Because of why? Look at the arithmetic there. And this was clear. I said it before Kaniri was appointed CDF. I'm not in the military, I'm not in government. I said Kaniri will become the CDF now, retire in May next year, so that the person William Ruto wants to become CDF when we are going for election is in place. And that person must come from his county, which is Uasin Gishu.
Investigations are ongoing
so, yes,
in terms of the cause of the accident.
And you know what's happening? I know there's an issue where, for example, KTN will not want to associate with some things, but truth remains the truth. I said in Kenya, there's what we call ABC of investigation. A, assume nothing. So we are assuming nothing. B means believe nothing. So whatever you hear, don't believe. Then check everything, because there could be some reasons here and there. So let all Kenyans express what their views are, and the investigators can take different perspectives without pigeonholing us to one direction. Because according to me as an expert, General Gola's death remains an incident until proven an accident.
Okay, let's talk about
Anybody with the theory of accident should give us how they came out with accident and how they executed it. So I say maybe because of that succession plan whereby we move from Air Force to Navy and then to Army, could be the reasons why someone can actually take advantage and say, I don't want so-and-so to be CDF at this time, let me get rid of this person. I'm trying to say that is a theory, and conspiracy theories are galore. And they shall allow. So according to me, if we do not have a head of state, or let's say people trusted in government, 20 rules can actually injure an individual. And remember that according to me, and my proposal, Brian has been talking about the proposal as a solution, my solution is this, and we don't have to go anywhere. In the US, the military pledges allegiance to the people and the Constitution of the Americans, of the United States, not to the head of state. As currently constituted, that's what the parliament should be doing for us, not telling us about changing age. Those are very cosmetic. If military pledges allegiance to the people of Kenya and the Constitution of Kenya, which is supreme, then this king can be cured without actually even doing away with 20 rules or actually formulating new ones. Because in the US, remember, when Trump saw that he was going to lose the election, he started threatening that he's not leaving White House. And he was told by the military that, my brother, prepare to leave, because we don't swear allegiance to you, but to the state. So the solution here should be more earth-shaking, should not be cosmetic, because for sure, for example, if the president controls parliament, because he controls it, he does with parliament what he wants. What stops him from doing what he wants with the parliament to pass some amendment in 20 rules the way he wants? So the main question should be, military of Kenya has been known well over as the most professional military in the world. And we should keep that thing very much at our heart, because why I'm trying to say so, Jesse, as an expert in governance, I'm not just an expert by word or by TV show. I'm an expert by practice. I have 16 World Bank certifications on corporate governance. So because of that, a state is conceived in military terms. And that's why the CDF, according to us, is like the legitimate head of state. And because you are commanding the entire armed forces that controls the external, internal control of a country, is a very powerful position. And that matter means that that CDF should be removed and be distinct from the office of the president. At the same time, Treasury. We have been talking about amendments to the Constitution here, where Treasury should not sit at the office of the president, so that the president cannot borrow money the way he wants. Because remember, the military, the presidency, and finance are so connected. So according to me, amending or not amending the military 20 rules is not the issue. The issue is, what problem are we solving? Because we cannot just amend because they have been here for many years. We are trying to solve a problem of independence of different institutions and state organs that should remain independent and should not be interfered with. I like what you said, my brother, that military should be completely apolitical.
Okay.
And how can we make them apolitical if the president is the one who swears them in, isn't it? He appoints them, isn't it? And he has a lot of controls on what happens. And then he said it was at his discretion to either appoint Ogola or not, or at least appoint Kaniri or not. It should not be at his discretion. It should be given that whatever the National Security Council will say, it is what it is, and he has no say about it.
Okay, interesting. And we can't canvass that issue because we leave the military matters to the military personnel. Will strictly stay apolitical. Allow us to briefly cross over to my colleague Emmanuel Tor, who is set to give us an outlook of the week that is coming up. What exactly is set to play out in the course of the week, Tor?
Well, thank you very much, Jesse. Sorry to interrupt that heated discussion right there. But some of the things that we'll be looking towards is the impeachment of CS Linturi, where that committee, the 11-member committee, is expected to have hearings from starting Wednesday and Thursday. I've just been in communication with some of the members of that committee who say those two members, the move of the motion, that is Jack Wamboka, who is the member of parliament for Bumula, will be making his case on Wednesday, and Linturi's team, or Linturi himself, will be replying affidavits on Thursday. Remember, parliament has been constituted as a quasi-judicial formation for that sitting, and we expect that some of those legal and technical jargon will be taking center stage. Something else that we're also looking up to is the signing of the IEBC amendment bill, or act now, or waiting to be an act. When the president comes in to assent to it. I remember members of parliament had already passed it last week, paving the way for the creation of the commission. Remember, right now we're operating without commissioners, and their by-elections that have been waiting for about a year plus. And we hope that that'll be putting an end to that. Something else that we expect to take to also cover the political activities this week is the push to have President William Ruto address a joint sitting of the Congress in the U.S. Remember, he's set to visit the U.S. on the 23rd of this month, about 3 weeks to go. And members of the Foreign Relations Committee in the U.S. had asked the Speaker of the House to allow the President to address the House, which is going to be the first time in 18 years an African president is going to address that Congress. We're waiting for that decision from the U.S. and overseas. And lastly, I would like to ask Michael, your panelist, that is Higgins, to tell us when are we expecting to have the UDA elections, the phase 2, because the phase 1 had already come to an end. Higgins.
It's in June 23rd, when we'll be having some midterm, but I think it will change depending on the school calendars, because most of the polling centers we are using are schools. So for phase 2, it was supposed to be in June, then phase 3 in August. But depending on how the school calendars will be revised, we'll advise accordingly.
And how many counties in
the phase 2 will be doing 14 counties.
Okay.
14 counties. But we are still discussing, we might do the entire remaining counties in one swoop in August, if we can be able to raise enough resources to purchase the electronic gadgets. But for the counties that we've conducted the first phase, the polling center election, we will proceed now to the ward and constituency elections. Okay. So in the next 1 week, we'll be doing ward election. After 2 weeks, we do constituency election. After another 2 weeks, we do the county election for the 5 counties.
Okay, Tom, I hope that's in order.
That's very clear, Jesse. And I hope this is the point where we're now taking a short break, and we'll be back with your call, with your comments about the show.